Hello, and thank you for joining this session where we'll talk about the pre-health advising program here at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. I'm Frank Scarano, and I'm the director of the program. And I would like to give you some high points of how this program works at UMass Dartmouth. But first of all, I want to congratulate all of you on your acceptance. Kudos to you. Congratulations for your acceptance to UMass Dartmouth. So we're going to talk a little bit about how this advising program works here at UMass Dartmouth. But I wanted to sort of give you a little background. Now, normally, when we were face-to-face, we would have a full hour session, and this session would be very interactive. I could, answer your questions in real time, and that sort of thing. And it makes it much more interesting, of course. So I'll try and keep this brief. Our admissions folks have asked us to, record these brief remarks, and then you can ask me questions later on in the live chat, or of course you can always reach me by email or telephone. The information is here on the slide, and I can answer more questions that way. We could even set up an individual Zoom or telephone conversation if you have more individualized questions in the future. So the first part of this presentation will talk about how the pre-health pre-med advising program works here at UMass Dartmouth. And then we'll go through a few slides after that highlight the process of preparing for medical school and other health-related programs, graduate programs, et cetera, and how this advising program can help you meet your goals and support you along the way. All right, so let's move forward. And so I want to give you a little bit of background. As I said, the pre-health and pre-med advising program here at UMass Dartmouth is not a major. It's not a minor, right? It's an advising program. It is really important for you to remember that and to be thinking about that. And we have a very strong philosophy about that here at UMass Dartmouth for many reasons. First of all, what would you do with a major in pre-med, right, or pre-health if you decided not to go to medical school, right? And of course, you know that it's incredibly competitive to get into medical school. So we want you to be thinking about a major that is going to provide you with skills and opportunities to find a career path that is going to be rewarding for you if you decide not to go to medical school. So it's very important that you be thinking about what that major is going to be. And it's important that you choose a major where you have passion, okay? Because when you have passion, you're more likely to enjoy what you're learning, and you're more likely to be successful. So in education jargon, we call that affective cognitive connections, right? So if you love it, right, you're more likely to do better, right? You're more likely to get it and really love it and move forward and excel at that. And of course, we know that doing well academically is a very important part of making the most robust application to medical schools as you can, right? So we'll talk through some of those hurdles that you have to get over in order to get the interview. But first of all, let's talk about various majors. Now, when I was in graduate school, I was TA at Albany Medical College, is where I went to graduate school. And when I was there, I was a TA for the medical microbiology courses for the laboratories for the medical students. And as a TA, I received a list every year of the demographics of our students so that we could know them, right? So we could get to know them. And it was always interesting to me to look at the majors of the undergraduate majors of all of these students. And I was amazed when I first started that only probably 50 to 60% of those students who are in medical school were actually science, like what we would consider science majors, right? The traditional science majors. The other 40 to 50% of them were from a huge variety, a long list of different kinds of majors. And it's really, that is really the point, is you choose a major where you're going to do well And as long as you have the appropriate prerequisites for the medical school or graduate program that you're interested in, then it can work out perfectly fine. So again, it's very important to have those affective cognitive connections, because that's going to help you to be successful. All right, so you want to choose a major where you're going to do well, and a major that's going to make you happy, as we said before, so that if you choose not to go to medical school, you'll have this alternative career path, right? That's also going to be very fulfilling for you. So as academic advisors, we really want to help you as students to meet your goals. All right, so in thinking about the way things run here at UMass Dartmouth, we want to be cognizant of the most common pre-health or pre-med majors. And like most schools, they're going to be those majors in the sciences. So we've listed them here: biology, biomedical engineering, chemistry and biochemistry, health and society, medical laboratory science, psychology, and as we said, all other majors are also able to take advantage of the pre-health advising program. The way that we provide the additional support is through additional academic advising. We have specific advisors who know the ins and outs of the process assigned in each department, and many of those members have had a long experience, a long history of experience in helping students to get into medical school. So the individuals are listed there. So Dr. Silby from biology will help students who are biology majors after the first couple of years. So all biology advisors are able to help in the first 2 years or so with pre-med advising. And then as we need to have more interactions with the pre-health committee, Dr. Silby is the contact person in the biology department for that assistance. In biomedical engineering, we have Dr. Tracy Ferreira. In chemistry and biochemistry, that's Dr. Kathy Netto. In health and society, it's Dr. Klimt. And in medical laboratory science, that's my department. I advise our med lab science students who are interested in pre-med, pre-health programs. But I'm also the contact person for all other majors on campus. So, music or English or, whatever it is outside of the majors listed here, I can help with that process as well. And again, in psychology, we have Dr. Fugate, who is our designated secondary advisor for students in psychology who are interested in pre-med. Another thing that I want to point out, when you're at UMass Dartmouth, we do have a student group. It's coded in our computer system as pre-med or PMED, but this is a pre-health group. And it basically is a method for me or other members of the university to send email messages in a blast out to all of the students who are interested in pre-med, pre-health. So when you come to UMass Dartmouth, I would recommend that you sign up for the PMED group so that you can get those notifications. So the next part, what I want to talk about, and I'm going to try to go quickly. As I said, in person, I would take more time to go through these things. But what I want to talk about is how we as a committee can help you get over some of these hurdles that you need to get over in order to get the interview for medical school. And again, this is going to apply to other kinds of programs as well. So obviously prerequisite courses. So we mentioned before, any major will work as long as you have the appropriate prerequisites. Getting an excellent GPA, right? So we want to, give you some coaching, make sure that you're on track with everything. MCAT preparation. Okay, again, also very important to have those things under your belt to get to have your application be as strong as it possibly can be so that you can get an interview. Okay. So just a few of these things, and you probably know all of this already if you've done your homework about medical school, but just to reiterate some of those things that are required for medical school. It's pretty straightforward. 2 semesters of biology with lab, 2 semesters of chemistry with lab, 2 semesters of organic chemistry with lab, 2 semesters of physics with lab. And it doesn't have to be calculus based, but If you can do that, it's wonderful. 2 semesters of English. Everybody has to take English anyway, but that is a requirement for the medical schools. Now, depending on the specific schools that you are going to apply to, or the specific programs that you want to, other kinds of programs that you want to go into, there are other courses that can be recommended, strongly recommended, or very helpful for that process. Statistics is becoming required for many medical schools, so that would be something else that you would want to make sure was in your repertoire. Calculus is not required by all schools, but it looks really great if you do well in calculus. So that's another thing that you might want to be thinking about. Biochemistry is not required, but it's recommended. It's very helpful because you will be studying biochemistry in medical schools. The more experience you have with that, the better. 2 semesters of psychology or some other social sciences, at least 1 semester of psychology. There is a psychology part of the MCAT, so you do want to make sure that you have some background there. And again, as I mentioned, other graduate programs like PA school will have different kinds of requirements. So you would do your homework and talk to your advisor to make sure that you're hitting all of the appropriate prerequisites for the program of choice. For example, with PA schools, they are going to require 2 semesters of anatomy and physiology along with the laboratory, whereas that's not part of the typical prerequisite for a medical school applicant. Other kinds of programs will have other requirements, as I mentioned, and so you want to investigate those to make sure that you're hitting all those requirements by graduation. Okay, GPA. So you want to, of course, excel and do very well. Different schools are going to have different averages and ranges for the GPA that, they're going to have minima and so forth, but you want to check those schools, check the schools to which you're going to apply. And so going into it, you know what they're looking for. In a general rule of thumb, if you have a 3.7 or higher, you're pretty competitive, right? We want to see at least a 3.4. That's on the low end. It depends on the school, and there are some exceptions and alternative admissions processes that can occur, but those are pretty rare. So we need to have a pretty strong GPA. It doesn't have to be 4.0, but it needs to be pretty strong. Like we said, 3.7 or higher to be competitive. Once you're in that range, you're going to be, you're going to be okay. There's not that much difference between a 3.7 and a 3.9, right? With respect to the school's not going to say, 3.9, you must have a 3.9 to get in. It's once you're up there in the range, it's okay. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So again, how do we help with this, help with getting, that nice high GPA? Choose a major where you have passion. As I mentioned, if you have passion, you're more likely to do well. And choose a major where you're going to excel. So if you have passion in a couple of things and you are more, you have a higher aptitude in one over the other, then go with that one, and that kind of thing. So it's important also to remember to take your science courses during the regular semesters, right? You don't want to take your science courses in the summer. We want to have at least 2 science courses at the same time so that we're careful about demonstrating rigor in our programs. So we want to avoid summer courses for science, but it's okay to take your other requirements. So let's say, you have to take your general education requirements. It's okay to take, your music course or your history class or something like that in the off semester to if you need to put some of those science courses during your regular semesters to get everything to fit into your program. We want to avoid repeating courses a lot. We want to avoid withdrawing from courses a lot. But if you have a troublesome semester, it's better to withdraw from a course than to earn an F. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind as well. I already mentioned that it's okay to fulfill some of your other requirements on the off semesters. And when you're choosing your electives for your university studies or general education requirements, distribution requirements, you want to choose meaningful electives. So things that, again, are going to speak to who you are as a person and who you want to be. And if you have a specific focus that you'd like to have in your interests, right? And this, we're going to get to your personal statement in a minute, but let's say you were very interested in women's health issues, right? For example, then you might want to take some of those electives in our women's and gender studies program, for example. So that is, again, going to be purposeful. There are only so many hours in the day. And as a pre-med, you're going to have to really hone your time management skills. So we want to be very careful that you don't overextend and that you choose wisely those things where you're going to focus your attention and your time. So choose meaningful electives and choose electives in which you are going to excel. Again, anything that we can do to improve the GPA or have a higher GPA, the more likely we are to be successful. Okay. The MCAT. The MCAT is just a bear of an exam. So there are preparation programs. There nothing that's formal here at the university, but we do have our student-led pre-health society, and they have regularly sponsored presentations specifically about preparing for MCAT. And those happen just about every year, sometimes twice a year. And we will have speakers who come from UMass Medical in particular, recruiting our students, and coming to talk about how to prepare best for the medical school application. So one of those key pointers that we have learned from those admissions counselors at medical schools is that reading is super important in helping you prepare for the MCAT. And it's going to help you with those analytical skills that you can't cram for that. The more you read, the more you're going to be able to analyze, the more you're going to be able to understand that part of the MCAT, and it's going to come, you're going to do, come more naturally to you, and you're going to do better on that the more you read. So there's a Book of the Month Club, actually sponsored through UMass Medical. So any students can participate. It's online, so they have a reading list, you have a discussion. So that's on top of your regular studying. You want to be reading other kinds of books and so forth, as to increase your vocabulary and so forth. Other things with MCAT is just prepare and practice more, right? So obviously, as you're moving through your curriculum, you're not going to have all of the areas covered. So, but you don't want to wait until the last semester to start preparation. You want to work on that gradually along the way, more in the junior and senior year, to get really ready for that. As far as performance, we're looking to be competitive. We're looking for the 75th percentile or above, of course. So that's about a 508 to, in that range. A little higher is better, of course. But that's something that will be looked upon by medical schools as competitive and allow you to move into the next part of the process. Again, different schools will have slightly different averages and different ranges, and you should investigate those prior to applying, so that you have your wish school, you have your safety schools, you have the schools where you're more likely to get those interviews and so forth. So something to be thinking about. All right, so beyond that, the other things that are important, again, after you have all of that underway, right, the GPA, the MCAT, the prerequisites, then we want to be thinking about how are you going to get that interview. And that's where the pre-health advising at UMass can really help you. So the personal statement, okay? So after you've gotten over all of those hurdles, your application goes into a big pile with a lot of other really smart people. And the application review committee has to look at that big pile and say, who do we actually want to interview? So the next thing they're going to look at is your personal statement. So we have assistants on campus, and we on the pre-health committee have also had experience in helping students with those personal statements. It's very important that, of course, it's well written, but it also wants to grab the attention of those application reviewers. And we want you to be thinking about how you're going to form that personal statement from the beginning. So you want to be thinking about your process and, again, theming together things in that personal statement. Other things that are important, shadowing a physician or either an MD or a DO, depending on which path you want to follow, can be very, very helpful, can also be helpful in then getting a recommendation from the physician, which is very, very helpful, especially for the DO schools. Of course, having a record of volunteerism is important. So this is to help fill out your application, or fulfill the activities in your application. So you want to have a variety of different things, but also be, again, cognizant of those things that are going to be meaningful to you. So you don't just, sometimes I'll say this to a first year student and they end up, joining 17 clubs and overextending. That's not what I'm saying. You want to do some volunteer work, but it has to be, within reason. There's only so many hours in the day. And you want to do volunteerism that is meaningful to you and that will thematically come together in your personal statement as well. Patient contact is important. This can be volunteered or paid. Again, during the current pandemic, this is very difficult, but the medical schools moving forward understand this. So, I've heard some webinars from medical schools recently. They understand that it's been difficult to have those patient contact hours, and they will understand that for several years that, the typical number of hours that students might have is going to be decreased, right? Hopefully as things move forward and we improve health conditions, we will be able to have more patient contact. And so when that happens, we want to make sure that you do get some of that. Other things that they're going to be looking for, teamwork, leadership, citizenship, involvement. So they want to see that you are well-rounded. And what I mean by juggling, I don't mean literally juggling. What I mean by juggling is that you're able to be a great student, do your patient contact, have volunteer work, demonstrate teamwork and leadership all at the same time. So again, time management is going to be super important to make your application as strong as it can be. As I said, you want to have purposeful activities, right? I've said that a few times, and when I repeat things, it's for a reason, right? So purposeful activities will, again, speak to you as an individual and speak to you with respect to who you are and what you want to become, and be thematically integrated into your personal statement. Letters of recommendation are super important. We can help you as a pre-health team, talk to you more about how to solicit those letters. So there's specific guidelines that are established by the AAMC, and we want to help you to get those letters, to get the best letters of recommendation that you can. And then taking advantage of the pre-health committee. So we will be able to write a committee letter. So we will collect those other letters of reference, and then we'll write an overarching letter from the committee, and that has a synergistic effect when you're thinking about that application. So 1 + 1 is 3, right, kind of thing. Whereas, rather than having a collection of individual letters, having those letters sent in as a packet with the committee letter has a synergistic effect, and it's sort of like a blessing from the pre-health committee, gets you a little bit further in that application process. And we also will hold the interview. We have mock interviews for students who are in the application process, have their MCAT scores and are ready to go. We will have mock interviews and give you feedback from the mock interview to help strengthen your application and strengthen your process moving forward when you have a real interview. Another thing that students don't necessarily understand, incoming students don't necessarily understand, is the timing of the application. So most students think that, oh, I must apply to medical school immediately and go from college right to medical school, where in fact only about 35% of students enter directly from college. The vast majority of students are going to have at least 1, maybe 2 gap years where they're working on other things to strengthen their application. And, the average age is 25 and going up, right? Trending upward with respect to the entering medical students. So that's something that most college freshmen, most people don't realize is that it's not common to go directly from college to medical school. There's going to be some time in there, and there is an advantage. So as an alumnus or alumna, right? I guess the politically gender neutral term is alum, right? As an alum of UMass Dartmouth, you can keep in touch with your faculty members. You can keep in touch with your contact person from the pre-health committee. And even as a graduate down the road, we can still help you with a pre-med interview, a mock interview, and all of these appropriate things. So keep in touch with us down the road. So I kind of went quickly through all of that. I hope it was helpful. As I mentioned, I'll be available in the live chat later on today. And then again, you can reach me by email, you can reach me by telephone, and if necessary, we can set up another session individually to talk about how this whole process works here at UMass Dartmouth. So once again, congratulations on your acceptance, and I look forward to seeing lots of you in the fall. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye now.